This is the time, this is the place where we look to the future and not much love to go round. Can't see this is my show of confusion. Welcome, everyone. Hi. Welcome to the show.
This is my show of confusion.
Well, it's working. I can hear myself
everyone.
coming through.
Hi.
So let's mute that.
Welcome to the show.
Fixed. All right. So we know we're good to go. Well, let's see what I should have on this screen here. Maybe that one there. Alrighty. So we're going to start shows off with an opening scene, and we're eventually going to have some kind of music. I know we've got to have something. This time, I think I can get, what do you call it? Royalty-free music. Type today. Weekday. Try that. 1 hour and 13 minutes worth of music, it says. I hope it's not lying. All right. Okay, I'm just going to mute that in a second and listen to what's coming back through here. I'm not. I closed the window. All right, let's open that window back up and check. Do. Okay. TJ, hi TJ, thanks for coming out. You should be in Founded Buried, of course, but I'm just doing some testing here, so a little of this, a little of that. I just want to see right now how the music's coming through. So let me just check this here. Sure am mute, thank you. All right, so yeah, exactly. No music, no sound, no mute. I'm just all right. So here you go. That's one of the what a rookie. Let's mute that there. All right. So that's what we're doing. I'm trying scenes and transitions. We can open shows with a little bit of music in this. We would come in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming out today. Oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, over, front and over. Sideshow. There we go. I think I want to move that shot over, maybe even to there. So we start like that. We say, hey, everybody, welcome to the Dime Bag Darren Show, Canadian coins and more. Thank you for coming out. Tonight we're going to take a look at a couple of interesting things that you can only find in Canada for the most part, and I hope you're going to enjoy them. God knows when I found them, I thought, the wife is holding out on me. And so I found them. I have them now, and I'm going to show you these bills, man. That's right. So, once again, welcome. I've got a little bit of a change in the scenery here with the Warsteiner poster there out behind me and everything else. So hopefully you'll like the show and like the way I put it together. I am working on being able to show you a few different shots and just sort of be able to transition through them cool, like, as well as, the overhead shots so I can show things. All right. Right on. I hope that means something good, BC Treasure Trails. I'm a local guy just like you. I'm over in the Abbey area. Abbotsford, that is. So, anywho, so get my little tray out here. I got packed into the corner of the desk. Let's see how that allows me to do a little bit of presentation. The Skycam here has a bit of a rock to it once I touch it. So it will always sort of have a residual rock and roll to it that I can't really get away from. But yeah. Here you can see me, the desk, the tray. Close up still in the corner. Back to just me. Pardon me. Over to nice camera shot. And then the overall overhead shot. Not that happy with the focus necessarily. I don't know what it looks like for you guys, but I'd like it to be even sharper if it was possible. Because that to me looks a little blurry, doesn't it to you? Let's see. Wow. Let's see here. Well, it does say tap to focus. That looks all right. And so there's the wide angle. And then there's the zoom in on this camera goes that far. It's still not particularly well focused in my opinion. And then if I switch over to the other camera, lets me zoom in farther. But nothing I like. I don't like anything here. Don't like the quality. I'm not sure what would make that better. Got lights above. Oh wait, let me kick on that other light. Why not? I don't know, they kind of look grainy and crappy to me. Not the kind of photography I'm hoping to do, honestly. Hope you're not missing out on the draw happening over at Found It Buried right now. If you are not there and you missed out, get over there and enjoy yourself while I'm testing over here. Nothing special going down, really. A little bit. I don't know. Just a little. Headbanger music! Is it too loud, Tina? I've now finally got it not turned down, but actually, let me see what else there is. So I did look. 1 hour of free indie rock, royalty free. 1 hour epi rock music, copyright free. Hello? Audio library, rock music. Background music, no copyright. Okay, let's try this one. All right. What horror movie am I watching? All right, yeah, because I don't want it to be too loud, but of course I wanted something in the background. I don't like it. Well, it's not my thing. I don't think it's a good idea to just not have anything in the background. I like it better this way. When I've heard other streams that have had a little something in the background, I think I've liked it better. So this is straight from the YouTube audio library, no copyright music. That's what you look up. So how can I possibly go wrong? He said. Thanks for coming in, Tina, BC Treasure Trails, TJ Smith, all y'all. Again, don't forget that Found It Buried is still on. Great giveaways and great camaraderie. And yes, sir. That should go pretty good. All right. Okay. So looks like the system's running pretty well. It's doing kind of what I'm hoping it'll do. So maybe it's time to have a little fun. What do you think? I think so. This is my favorite book. You guys have a favorite book? I do. And this is it. Alrighty, let's see what we've got in this favorite book of mine. Some interesting things I found. Now, I'm going to save some of them till the end. So I'm going to... Told you my wife was holding out on me, and I found some old bills with you at the end. But here's something cool that I've been pressing out in the pages of the book here. let's look at it this way. Other than the camera float I end up with, I remember Flowers in the Attic. That is from Yugoslavia. It says right there, Yugoslavia. So this is a... Here it is again, Republika Yugoslavia, the Socialistica Federation Republika Yugoslavia, and 10 mucklucks, or whatever they're called. Here. That's pretty cool. So that was in the book. Cool. Okay. Isaac Asimov was one of the most prolific writers of our time. And this book here is a huge collection of some of his best stories. And the ones in the back are short stories. So maybe we'll just take a look at those. All right, this one's called iRobot. Okay. Now let me just see if there's a better camera angle for this. That's not bad. That's pretty cool if I was to do it like that. Of course, you're just going to see my head down like this, but that seems to be an okay shot. All right, let's do this right here. I think this will work just fine. All right. Okay. So this compilation would be called iRobot by Isaac Asimov. An introduction. I looked at my notes and I didn't like them. I'd spent 3 days at US Robots, and it might as well have been time spent with them at home. And it might as well have been spent and might as well have spent them at home. Okay. I spent 3 days at US Robots and might as well have spent them at home with the Encyclopedia Tellurica. Susan Calvin had been born in the year 1982, they said, which made her 75 now. Everyone knew that. Appropriately enough, US Robots and Mechanical Men Incorporated was 75 also, since it had been in the year of Dr. Calvin's birth that Lawrence Robertson had first taken out incorporation papers for what would eventually become the strangest industrial giant in man's history. Well, everyone knew that too. At the age of 20, Susan Calvin had been part of the particular psychomath seminar at which Dr. Alfred Lansing of US Robots had demonstrated the first mobile robot to be equipped with a voice. It was large, clumsy, unbeautiful robot, smelling of machine oil and destined for the projected mines on Mercury. But it could speak and make sense. Susan said nothing at that seminar and took no part in the hectic discussion period that followed. She was a frosty girl, plain and colorless, who protected herself against a world she disliked by a mask-like expression and a hypertrophy of intellect. But as she watched and listened, she felt the stirrings of a cold enthusiasm. She obtained her bachelor's degree at Columbia in 2003 and began graduate work in cybernetics. All of that had been done in the mid-20th century on calculating machines that had been upset by Robertson and his positronic brain paths. The miles of relay and photocells had given way to the spongy globe of platinum iridium about the size of a human brain. She learned to calculate the parameters necessary to fix the possible variables within the positronic brain, to construct brains on paper and such that the responses to a given stimuli could be accurately predicted. In 2008, she obtained her PhD and joined United States Robots as a robopsychologist, becoming the first great practitioner of a new science. Lawrence Robertson was still president of the corporation. Alfred Lanning had become director of research. For 50 years, she watched the direction of human progress change and leap ahead. Now she was retiring, as much as she ever could at least. She was allowing somebody else's name to be inset upon the door of her office. That was eventually what I had. I had a long list of her published papers, of the patents in her name. I had the chronological details of her promotions. In short, I had her professional vita in full detail. But that wasn't what I wanted. I needed more than that for my feature articles for Interplanetary Press. Much more. I told her so. Dr. Calvin, I said as lushly as possible, in the minds of the public, you and U.S. robots are identical. Your retirement will end an era, and you want the human interest angle. She didn't smile at me. I didn't think she ever smiles, but her eyes were sharp, though not angry. I felt her glance slide through me and out my occiput, and I knew that I was unceremoniously transparent to her, that everybody was. But I said, that's right. Human interest out of robots, a contradiction. No, doctor, out of you. Well, I've been called a robot myself. Surely they've told you I'm not human. They had, but there was no point saying so. She got up from her chair. She wasn't tall, and she looked frail. I followed her to the window, and we looked out. The offices and factories of U.S. robotics were a small city, spaced and planned. It was flattened out like an aerial photograph. When I came here, she said, I had a little room in a building right there, about where the firehouse is now, she pointed. It was torn down before you were born. I shared the room with 3 others. I had half a desk. We built our robots all in one building, output 3 a week. Now look at us. 50 years, I hackened, is a long time. Not when you're looking back at them, she said. You wonder how they vanished so quickly. She went back to her desk and sat down. She did need an expression on her face to look sad somehow. How old are you? She wanted to know. 32, I said. Then you don't remember a world without robots. There was a time when humanity faced the universe alone and without a friend. Now, he has creatures to help him, stronger creatures than himself, more faithful, more useful, and definitely devoted to him. Mankind is no longer alone. Have you ever thought of it that way? I'm afraid I haven't. May I quote you? You may. To you, a robot is a robot. Gears and metal, electricity and positrons, mind and iron, human-made, if necessary, human-destroyed. But you haven't worked with them, so you don't know them. They're a cleaner, better breed than we are. I tried to nudge her gently with words. We'd like to hear some of the things you could tell us. Get your views on robots. The interplanetary press reaches the entire solar system. Potential audience is 3 billion, Dr. Calvin. They ought to know what you could tell them on robots. It wasn't necessary to nudge. She didn't hear me, but she was moving in the right direction. They might have known that from the start. We sold robots for Earth use then. It was before my time, it was. Of course, that was when robots could not talk. Afterward, they became more human and opposition began. The labor unions, of course, naturally opposed robot competition for human jobs, and various segments of religious opinion had their superstitions and objections. It was all quite ridiculous and quite useless, and yet there it was. I was taking down verbatim on my pocket recorder, trying not to show the knuckle motions of my hand. If you practice a bit, you can get to the point where you can record accurately without taking the little gadget out of your pocket. Take the case of Robbie, she said. I never knew him. He was dismantled the year before I joined the company, hopelessly out of date. But I saw the little girl in the museum. She stopped. But I didn't say anything. I let her eyes mist up and her mind travel back. She had a lot of time to cover. I heard about it later, and when they called us blasphemers and demon creators, I always thought of him. Robbie was a non-vocal robot. He couldn't speak. He was made and sold in 1996. Those were the days before extreme specialization. So he was old as a nursemaid. Sorry, he was sold as a nursemaid. As a what? As a nursemaid. That's the short story of Robbie the Robot from Isaac Asimov's story, I, Robot. Let me show you something that is uniquely Canadian. And I'm going to just use this as a bookmark right now, right here. So we'll just put that in there like that. In Canada, this is like money. Hey, Steeler Stacker, nice to see you, bud. Hello, hello, hello. We're just reading a little story there. We're going to come back to the story in a bit. Now I'm going to show you some money. Well, in Canada, it's money. You probably wouldn't think of it as money, but actually, before I show you that, let me just do a quick little look because I'm pressing it out. Oh, there's one. Trying to find some nice examples. So I threw a few in here between the pages because, you know, these things start to look not so great after a while. And you find them old, you know, you find them laying around. That's not one. That's not one. That's not one. All right, almost ready, almost ready. Oh, there's one. That's one. Wow. That's cool. It's not one, though. That's one. Now, it's money if you can go to the store and buy something with it, right? Maybe? All right. That's it. No more fooling around. Check it out. May I interest you in some Canadian Tire money in Canada? Good for what ails you. If you can fix what ails you at Canadian Tire. Canadian Tire being our, I don't know, our Les Schwab, our Pep Boys, some kind of similar thing like that. Look at these. Look at them. Look at it all. All those, all that. It's like money, man. Look at that. Oh, what do we have here? Hey there, found a buried ray. What? He can't be done already. Hi, everyone. If that's what's going on, thank you so much. If Founded Berry is not finished, get your butt back over there and don't miss out on any cool thing that's happening over there because you don't want to miss out. But I'm just showing some Canadian money here. You don't find this just anywhere, man. Canadian Tire money. That one looks pretty gross. But it would still spend. With this, I could get 10, 20, 30, 35, and 35 and 25, man. That's going to be a 40, 60 cents. With all of these, I could get 60 cents off a bag of chips. But my wife was holding out on me, man. I found those in a drawer. She's trying to hide them from me. I mean, that's cash. So the reason why I'm doing this tonight is to show off my opening scene, to show off some of the camera angles that we're going to be working with in the future. So hi, everyone. You know, we're going to try to have some fun with this and enjoy Canadian Tire money. Canadian Tire money? What do you mean Canadian Tire money? Canadian Tire. Found It Buried Raid. Carrie Baxter, Tina Fackler, Victoria Roman Carter, a.k.a. Cindy. Esther, thank you for coming. Just W. Found It Buried is actually, you're here. What are you doing here? Making it raid. You're making it raid. Send you the money. You want that? Yeah. Send you some of that. So we go into the overhead camera. Got that big Canadian Tire loot, baby. Oh, yeah. Well, what about something cooler? Hang on. We'll find something. Oh, there was something. Yeah, okay. Oh, what's this? The same one as we looked at earlier. It's exactly the same bill. Well, I have a few of those clearly. Okay, here we go. That's something different. Here we go. Once again, from my friend's mother's trip to Yugoslavia back in the day. Way back in the day. We have a 20. We have a 20. Hi, Bubba. Got a 20. And that is Yugoslavia money. And over here, once again, it says something, something Federation, the Republika, the Yugoslavia. So there you go. So some Canadian Tire money, some Yugoslavia money. Yes, sirree, Bob. And they say money. Well, Canadian money is forged in some sort of plastic plant now, right? Patrick Johnson in the house. Thank you for coming by. Okay, so we already had the short story, I, Robot, from the book Isaac Asimov's collected short stories. There's another Yugoslavia 10. All right. So the next story is called Robbie, and is the story of Robbie the robot, this particular robot. So let me just do a quick thing here before we move on. Pop out the chat, popping out the chat, popping out the chat. Wait a second here. Click, click, click. Click, 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 click. I don't know, Mike. That's a toughie. I'm not sure. Just give me a second to blue you guys. Everybody should be blue now. If you're not, let me know. Do a little chat ski and I'll see that you're not blue and we'll fix that. This is the smartest way to handle this, I think. Especially when it's a group like you guys. It's real quick to do. Crafty Dragon. I thought for sure he'd be going deep. All right. I think I'm basically through the list. Crafty, you're blue. Eiffel, blue. Mike, Crafty. Looks good. Bubba should be done. Good. I hope I've done that. All right. So we'll go back to the side shot there for a second. You should be able to see the Warsteiner banner there nicely. I got a little more Canadian with the other one here. I wanted to show off the old Canada flag and whatnot, so got that all happening. And what else? What else should I be doing here? No, I should keep that one up. That's what I should do. That is what I should do. Now, George never gets a chance to, but I love to invite everybody up. So there it is. Going to have a little invite for people to come up. Should you want to, I'd be happy to have you. This story is called Robbie. "98, 99, 100. Gloria withdrew her chubby little forearm from before her eyes and stood for a moment, wrinkling her nose and blinking in the sunlight. Then, trying to watch in all directions at once, she withdrew a few cautious steps from the tree against which she had been leaning. She craned her neck to investigate the possibilities of a clump of bushes. To the right, and then withdrew further to obtain a better angle for viewing its dark recesses. The quiet was profound, except for the incessant buzzing of insects and the occasional chirp of some hardy bird braving the midday sun. Gloria pouted. I bet he went inside the house, and I've told him 1,000,000 times that that's not fair. With tiny lips pressed together tightly and a severe frown crinkling her forehead, she moved determinedly towards the 2-story building, up past the driveway. Too late she heard the rustling sound behind her, followed by the distinctive and rhythmic clump of Robbie's metal feet. She whirled about to see her triumphing companion emerge from hiding and make for the home tree at full speed. Gloria shrieked in dismay. "Wait, Robbie! That wasn't fair, Robbie! You had promised you wouldn't run until I found you." Her little feet could make no headway at all against Robbie's giant strides. Then, within 10 feet of the goal, Robbie's pace slowed suddenly to the merest of crawls, and Gloria, with one final burst of wild speed, dashed pantingly past him to touch the welcome bark of the home tree first. Gleefully she turned on the faithful Robbie, with the basest of ingratitude, rewarding him for his sacrifice by taunting him cruelly for a lack of running ability. "Robbie can't run," she shouted at the top of her 8-year-old voice. "I can beat him any day. I can beat him any day." She chanted the words in a shrill rhythm. Robbie, of course, didn't answer, not in words. He pantomimed running instead, inching away until Gloria found herself running after him as he dodged her narrowly, forcing her to veer in helpless circles, little arms outstretched and fanning the air. "Robbie," she squealed, "stand still." And the laughter was forced out of her in breathless jerks, until he turned suddenly and caught her up, whirling her around so that for her the world fell away, and for a moment, with a blue emptiness beneath and green trees stretched hungrily towards the void, she was down in the grass again, leaning against Robbie's leg and still holding a hard metal finger. After a while her breath returned. She pushed uselessly at her disheveled hair in a vague imitation of one of her mother's gestures, and twisted to see if her dress was torn. She slapped her hand against Robbie's torso, Bad boy, I'll spank you. And Robbie cowered, holding his hands over his face so that she had to add, "No, I won't, Robbie. I won't spank you. But anyway, it's my turn to hide now because you've got longer legs and you promised not to run till I found you." Robbie nodded his head. A small parallel pipe with round edges and corners attached to a similar but larger parallel pipe that served as a torso by means of a short flexible stalk, and obediently faced the tree. A thin metal film descended over his glowing eyes, and from within his body came a steadily resonant ticking. "Don't peek now, and don't skip any numbers," warned Gloria, and scurried for cover. With unvarying regularity, seconds were ticked off, and at the 100th, up went the eyelids, and the glowing red of Robbie's eyes swept the prospect. Swept the prospect. They rested for a moment on a bit of colorful gingham that protruded from behind a boulder. He advanced a few steps and convinced himself that it was Gloria, who was squatted behind it. Slowly, remaining always between Gloria and the home tree, he advanced on the hiding place. When Gloria was plainly in sight and could no longer even theorize to herself that she was not seen, he extended one arm towards her, slapping the other against his leg so it rang again. Gloria emerged sulkily. "You peeked!" she exclaimed with gross unfairness. "Besides, I'm tired of playing hide and seek. I want to ride." But Robbie was hurt at the unjust accusation, so he seated himself carefully and shook his head ponderously from side to side. Pennies to Benji's. Gloria changed her tone to one of gentle coaxing immediately. "Come on, Robbie. I didn't mean it about the peeking. Give me a ride." Robbie wasn't to be won over so easily, though. He gazed stubbornly at the sky and shook his head even more emphatically. "Please, Robbie, give me a ride." She encircled his neck with rosy arms and hugged tightly. Then, changing moods in a moment, she moved away. "If you don't, I'm going to cry." And the face twisted appallingly in preparation. Hard-hearted Robbie paid scant attention to this dreadful possibility and shook his head for a third time. Gloria found it necessary to play her trump card. "If you don't," she exclaimed warmly, "I won't tell you any more stories. That's all. Not one." Robbie gave in immediately and unconditionally before this ultimatum, nodding his head vigorously until the metal of his neck hummed. Carefully, he raised the little girl and placed her on his broad, flat shoulders. Gloria's threatened tears vanished immediately, and she crowed with delight. Robbie's metal skin, kept at a constant temperature of 70 by the high-resistance coils within, felt nice and comfortable, while the beautifully loud sound her heels made as they bumped rhythmically against his chest was enchanting. "You're an air coaster, Robbie. You're a big silver air coaster. Hold your arms out straight. You've got to, Robbie, if you're going to be an air coaster." The logic was irrefutable. Robbie's arms were wings, catching the air currents, and he was a silver coaster. Gloria twisted the robot's head and leaned to the right. He banked sharply. Gloria equipped with the coaster and a motor that went brrr, and then the weapons that went powie and shoo. Pirates were giving chase, and the ship's blasters were coming into play. The pirates dropped in a steady rain. "Got another one! 2 more!" she cried. Then, "Faster, men!" Gloria said pompously. "We're running out of ammunition." She aimed over her shoulder with undaunted courage, and Robbie was a blunt-nosed spaceship moving through the void at maximum acceleration. Clear across the field he sped to the patch of tall grass on the other side, where he stopped, and with a suddenness that evoked a shriek from his flushed rider, and then tumbled her onto the soft green carpet. Gloria gasped and panted. She gave voice to intermittent whispers of exclamation of "That was nice." Robbie waited until he had caught her breath. Robbie waited till she had caught her breath and pulled gently at a lock of hair. "You want something?" Gloria said, with eyes wide in apparent artless complexity that fooled her large nursemaid not at all. He pulled the curl harder. "Oh, I know, you want a story." Robbie nodded rapidly. "Which one?" Robbie made a semicircle in the air with one finger. The girl protested. "Again? I've told you Cinderella 1,000,000 times. Aren't you tired of it? It's for babies." "Oh, well." Gloria composed herself and ran over the details of the tale in her mind, together with her own elaborations, of which she had several, and began. "Are you ready? Well, once upon a time there was a beautiful little girl whose name was Ella, and she had a terribly cruel stepmother and two very ugly and very cruel stepsisters. And we'll be back to that. The story of Robbie the Robot. Here's a nice one. Let me go back to overhead for this one right here. Here we have Cinco Pinon. I don't even know what pinons are, but pesos. Cinco pesos. I mean, they're not pinons, they're pesos. That's a pretty fine looking bill. That one's been pressing in the book for a while, so it looks half decent. Cinco pesos from the beautiful place of the República Mexicana. The República Mexicana. Let's see if we can get a little closer in there. There we go. Once again, we're going to have Sky Rock. That looks not so bad. Earlier, I wasn't very happy with the way I made coins look, but these gentlemen seem to be doing all right. Doodle doodle doo doo. All right. Check it out. I like that red seal in the corner. Very nice looking. I don't know if that's something that they printed on there after the fact. Kind of looks like it's over top. Got some X's there. I wonder what that's all about. Looks like this red and this red are the same and maybe printed after the fact. Don't know too much about that. But something cool. All right. Let's go back to the story. Gloria was reaching the very climax of the tale. Midnight was striking, and everything was changing back to the shabby originals lickety-split, while Robbie listened tensely with burning eyes when the interruption came. "Gloria!" It was the high-pitched sound of a woman who had been calling not once, but several times, and had the nervous tone of one in whom anxiety was beginning to overcome impatience. "Mama's calling me," said Gloria, not quite happily. "You'd better carry me back to the house, Robbie." Robbie obeyed with alacrity, for somehow there was that in him which judged it best to obey Mrs. Weston without as much as a scrap of hesitation. Gloria's father was rarely home in the daytime except on Sunday, today, for instance, and when he was, he proved a genial and understanding person. Gloria's mother, however, was a source of uneasiness to Robbie, and there was always the impulse to sneak away from her sight. Mrs. Weston caught sight of them the minute they rose above the masking tufts of long grass and retired in the house to wait. "I've shouted myself hoarse, Gloria," she said severely. "Where were you?" "I was with Robbie," quavered Gloria. "I was telling him Cinderella, and I forgot it was dinner time." "Well, it's a pity Robbie forgot too." Then, as if that reminded her of the robot's presence, she whirled upon him. "You may go, Robbie. She doesn't need you now." Then brutally, "And don't come back till I call you." Robbie turned to go, but hesitated as Gloria cried out in his defense. "Wait, Mama, you've got to let him stay. I didn't finish reading Cinderella for him. I said I would tell him Cinderella, and I'm not finished." "Gloria." "Honest and truly, Mama, he'll stay so quiet you won't even know he's here. He can sit on the chair in the corner, and he won't say a word. I mean, he won't do anything, will you, Robbie?" Robbie appealed to, nodded his massive head up and down. "Gloria, if you don't stop this at once, you shan't see Robbie for a whole week." The girl's eyes fell. "All right, but Cinderella is his favorite story and I didn't finish it, and he likes it so much." The robot left with a disconsolate step, and Gloria choked back a sob. George Weston was comfortable. It was a habit of his to be comfortable on Sunday afternoons. A good hearty dinner from the Hatches, a nice, soft, dilapidated couch on which to sprawl, and a copy of the Times. Slippered feet and shirtless chest. How could anyone help but be comfortable? He wasn't pleased, therefore, when his wife walked in. After 10 years of married life, he still was so unutterably foolish as to love her. And there was no question that he's always glad to see her. Still, Sunday afternoons just after dinner were sacred to him, and his idea of solid comfort was to be left in utter solitude for 2 or 3 hours. Consequently, he fixed his eyes firmly upon the latest reports of the Lefebvre-Yoshida expedition to Mars. This one was to take off from the lunar base and might eventually succeed, and pretended she wasn't there. Mrs. Weston waited patiently for 2 minutes, and then impatiently for 2 minutes more, and finally broke the silence. "George!" "Humph? George, I say, will you put the paper down and look at me?" The paper rustled to the floor, and Weston turned a weary face towards his wife. "What is it, dear?" "You know what it is, George. It's Gloria and that terrible machine." "What terrible machine?" "Now don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about. It's that robot Gloria calls Robbie. He doesn't leave her for a moment." "Well, why should he? He's not supposed to. And he certainly isn't a terrible machine. He's the best darn robot money can buy, and I'm damn sure he sent me back a half a year's income. He's worth it, though. Darn sight cleverer than half of my office staff." He made a move to pick up the paper again, but his wife was quicker and snatched it away. "You listen to me, George. I won't have my daughter entrusted to a machine, and I don't care how clever it is. It has no soul, and no one knows what it might be thinking. A child just isn't made to be guarded by a thing of metal." Weston frowned. "When did you decide this? He's been with Gloria 2 years now, and I haven't seen you worry until now." "It was different at first. It was a novelty, and it took a load off me, and it was a fashionable thing to do. But now, I don't know. The neighbors." "Well, what have the neighbors got to do with it? Now look, a robot is infinitely more to be trusted than a human nursemaid. Robbie was constructed for only one purpose, really, to be the companion of a little child. His entire mentality has been created for the purpose. He just can't help being faithful, loving, and kind. He's a machine made so. That's more than you can say for humans." "But something might go wrong. Some Mrs. Weston was a bit hazy about the insides of a robot. Some little jigger will come loose and the awful thing will go berserk, and then she couldn't quite bring herself to complete the quite obvious thought. Nonsense, Weston denied, with an involuntary nervous shiver. That's completely ridiculous. We've had a long discussion at the time we bought Robbie about the first law of robotics. You know that it is impossible for a robot to harm a human being. That long before enough can go wrong to alter the first law, a robot would be completely inoperable. It's a mathematical impossibility. Besides, I have an engineer from US Robotics here twice a year to give the poor gadget a complete overhaul. Why, there's no more chance of something going wrong with Robbie than there is of you or I suddenly going loony. Considerably less, in fact, because how are you going to take him away from Gloria? He made another futile stab at the paper, and his wife tossed it angrily into the next room. That's just it, George. She won't play with anybody else. There are dozens of little boys and girls that she could make friends with, but she won't. She won't go near them unless I make her. That's no way for a little girl to grow up. You want her to be normal, don't you? You want her to be able to take part in society. You're jumping at shadows, Grace. Pretend Robbie's a dog. I've seen hundreds of children who would rather have their dog than their father. A dog is different, George. We must get rid of that horrible thing. You can sell it back to the company. I've asked, and you can. You've asked? Now look here, Grace. Let's not go off the deep end. We're keeping the robot until Gloria is older, and I don't want the subject brought up again. And he walked out of the room in a huff. Let's see what other things might be in the book. Here's one. Well, once again, we have some interesting Yugoslavia money, and this time it's 50. I don't know if that's like the equivalent of 50 cents or $50. I could not give you any idea, but what a beautiful shade of blue it is, don't you think? Probably hear that noise going off constantly just to know scream. I'm just reading up the chat here, trying to get caught up here to see. It is. It's really nice, don't you think? Why is it moving like that? Because it's hung from overhead. And because of that, if I touch it in order to zoom in, then I've handled it with my fingers, and that causes it to rock back and forth a little bit. And that back and forth rocking shows to you is up and down. I apologize. And if I was to leave it alone long enough, it would stop rocking. But in a half a second, I'm going to touch it again. Yeah, so we've had the 50 from Yugoslavia. We've had the 20. A nice ship on it. That's got, I don't know who that would be, of course, but maybe army guys, or hard to tell. And we have seen the 10 with that gentleman there, Joe Friendly. Nothing wrong with bobbing or weaving. Bob and weave, weave and bob. Keeps you from getting punched in the nose. Bob and weave, baby, bob and weave. Well, that's another 10. I got quite a few of these given to me. Okay, there's something cool. I was thinking about maybe sending this in so that George could retire. Yeah, come on. There we go. This one got pretty beat up too. Nobody's come up. I put up the link once already. I'm going to put it up again. Nobody brave enough to come visit. Do. Okay. Alrighty. All right. Mrs. Weston met her husband at the door 2 evenings later. You'll have to listen to this, George. There's a bad feeling in the village. About what? Asked Weston. He stepped into the washroom and drowned out any possible answer with a splash of water. Mrs. Weston waited. She said, About Robbie. Weston stepped out, towel in hand, face red and angry. What are you talking about? Oh, it's been building up and building up. I've tried to close my eyes to it, but I'm not going to anymore. Most of the villagers consider Robbie dangerous. Children aren't allowed to go near our place in the evenings. We trust our child with the thing. Well, these people are not reasonable about these things. Then to hell with them. Saying that doesn't solve the problem. I've got to do my shopping down there. I've got to meet them every day. And it's even worse in the city these days when it comes to robots. New York has just passed an ordinance keeping all robots off the streets between sunset and sunrise. All right, but they can't stop us from keeping a robot in our home. Grace, this is one of your campaigns. I recognize it, but it's no use. The answer is still no. We're keeping Robbie. And yet, he loved his wife. And what was worse, his wife knew it. George Weston was, after all, only a man, poor thing. And his wife made full use of every device which a clumsier and more scrupulous sex had learned, with reason and futility, to fear. 10 times in the ensuing week he cried, Robbie stays, and that's final. Each time it was weaker, and accompanied by a louder and more agonized groan. Came the day at last, when Weston approached his daughter guiltily and suggested a beautiful Visivox show in the village. Gloria clapped her hands happily. Can Robbie go? No, dear, he said, and winced at the sound of her voice. They won't allow robots in the Visivox, but you can tell him about it when you get home. He stumbled all over the last few words and looked away. Gloria came back from town bubbling over with enthusiasm for the Visivox. For the Visivox had been a gorgeous spectacle indeed. She waited for her father to maneuver the jet car into the sunken garage. Wait till I tell Robbie, Daddy. He would have liked it like anything, especially when Francis Fran was backing away so quietly and backed right into one of the leopard men and had to run. She laughed again. Daddy, are there really leopard men on the moon? Probably not, Weston absently. It's just funny make-believe. He couldn't take much longer with the car. He'd have to face it. Gloria ran across the lawn. Robbie, Robbie! Then she stopped suddenly at the sight of a beautiful collie, which regarded her out of serious brown eyes as it wagged its tail on the porch. Oh, what a nice dog! Gloria climbed the steps, approaching cautiously and patted it. Is it for me, Daddy? Her mother had joined them. Yes, it is, Gloria. Isn't it nice and soft and furry? It's very gentle. It likes little girls. Can he play games? Surely he can do a number of tricks. Would you like to see some? Right away. I want Robbie to see him too. Robbie! She stopped uncertainly and frowned. I bet he's just staying in his room because he's mad at me for not taking him to the Visivox. You'll have to explain to him, Daddy. He might not believe me, but he knows if you say it that it's so. Weston's lips grew tighter. He looked towards his wife but could not catch her eye. Gloria turned precipitously and ran down the basement steps, shouting as she went, Robbie, come see what Daddy and Mama bought me. They bought me a dog, Robbie. In a minute, she returned, a frightened little girl. Mommy, Robbie isn't in his room. Where is he? There was no answer, and George Weston coughed and was suddenly extremely interested in an aimlessly drifting cloud. Gloria's voice quavered at the verge of tears. Where's Robbie, Mama? Mrs. Weston sat down and drew her daughter gently to her. Don't feel bad, Gloria. Robbie has gone away, I think. Gone away? Where? Where has he gone, Mama? No one knows, darling. He just walked away. We've looked and we've looked and we've looked for him, but we can't find him. You mean he'll never come back again? Her eyes were round with horror. We may find him soon. We'll keep looking for him, and meanwhile you can play with your nice new doggie. Look at him. His name is Lightning, and he can... But Gloria's eyelids had overflown. I don't want the nasty dog. I want Robbie. I want you to find me Robbie. Her feelings became too deep for words, and she sputtered into a shrill wail. Mrs. Weston glanced at her husband for help, but he merely shuffled his feet morosely and did not withdraw his ardent stare from the heavens. So she bent to the task of consolation. Why do you cry, Gloria? Robbie was only a machine, just a nasty old machine. He wasn't alive at all. He was no machine. He was no machine, screamed Gloria fiercely and ungrammatically. He was a person just like you and me, and he was my friend. I want him back, Mama. Oh, I want him back. Her mother groaned in defeat and left Gloria to her sorrow. Let her have her cry out, she told her husband. Childish griefs are never lasting. In a few days she'll forget that awful robot ever existed. But time proved Miss Weston a little too optimistic. To be sure, Gloria ceased crying, but she ceased smiling too, and in the passing days found her ever more silent and shadowy. Gradually, her attitude of passive unhappiness wore Miss Weston down, and all that kept her from yielding was the impossibility of admitting defeat to her husband. Then one day she flounced into the living room, sat down, folded her arms, and looked boiling mad. Her husband stretched his neck in order to see over his newspaper. What now, Grace? It's that child, George. I've had to send back the dog today. Gloria positively won't stand the sight of him. She said she's driving me mad in a nervous breakdown. Weston laid down the paper and a hopeful gleam entered his eye. Maybe we ought to get Robbie back. It might be done, you know. I can get in touch with... No, she replied grimly. I won't hear of it. We're not giving up that easily. My child shall not be brought up by a robot if it takes years to break her of it. Weston picked up his paper again with a disappointed air. A year of this will have me prematurely gray. You're a big help, George, was the frigid answer. What Gloria needs is a change of environment. Of course she can't forget Robbie here, when every tree and every rock reminds her of him. It is really the silliest situation I've ever heard of. Imagine a child pining away for the loss of a robot. Well, stick to the point. What's the change in environment you're planning? We're going to take her to New York. The city in August? Say, do you know what New York is like in August? It's unbearable. Millions do bear it. They don't have a place like this to go to. If they didn't have to stay in New York, they wouldn't. Well, we have to. I say we're leaving now as soon as we can make the arrangements. In the city, Gloria will find sufficient interest and sufficient friends to perk her up and make her forget that machine. Oh, Lord, groaned the lesser half. Those frying pavements. We have to, was the unshaken response. Gloria has lost 5 pounds in the last month, and my little girl's health is more important to me than your comfort. Pity you didn't think of your little girl's health before you deprived her of her pet robot, he muttered, but to himself. All right, I look up for a moment and let's just get caught up on the chat and see what's going on. There should be pictures. Yes, there should be pictures. Now, like I say, the reason for doing this was to try out this, that, giving you an overhead shot, me in the picture, the logo banner, the just me shot right here. Hi, everyone. Thanks for popping in, those of you that have put up with this so far. And this little shot here. Yeah. So anyway, Tina went to bed. Thank you, Tina. All right. And how much of the story is left? Well, there's still a few pages. All right. No, I wasn't smart enough to bring a drink. Gloria displayed immediate signs of improvement when told of the impending trip to the city. She spoke little of it, but when she did, it was always with lively anticipation. Again, she began to smile and eat with something of her former appetite. Mrs. Weston hugged herself for joy and lost no opportunity to triumph over her still skeptical husband. You see, George, she helps with the packing like a little angel, and she chatters away as she hasn't got a care in the world. It was just as I told you. All we need is to substitute other interests. Was the skeptical response. I hope so. Preliminaries were gone through quickly. Arrangements were made for the preparation of their city home, and a couple were engaged as housekeepers for their country home. When the day of the trip did finally come, Gloria was all but her old self again, and no mention of Robbie passed her lips at all. In high good humor, the family took a taxi gyro to the airport. Weston would have preferred using his own private gyro, but it was only a 2-seater with no room for baggage, and entered the waiting liner. Come, Gloria, said Mrs. Weston. I've saved you a seat near the window so you can watch the scenery. Gloria trotted down the aisle cheerily, flattened her nose into a white oval against the thick, clear glass, and watched with an intenseness that increased as the sudden coughing of the motor drifted backward into the interior. She was too young to be frightened when the ground dropped away, as if let through a trap door, and she suddenly became twice her usual weight, but not too young to be mightily interested. It wasn't until the ground had changed into a tiny patchwork quilt that she withdrew her nose and faced her mother again. Will we soon be in the city, Mama? She asked, rubbing her chilled nose and watching with interest as the patch of moisture which her breath had formed on the pane shrank slowly and vanished. In about an hour, dear. And then, with the faintest trace of anxiety, aren't you glad we're going? Don't you think we'll be very happy in the city with all the buildings, the people, and the things to see? We'll go to the Visivox every day and see shows and go up to the circus and the beach and... Yes, Mama, was Gloria's unenthusiastic rejoinder. The liner passed over a bank of clouds at the moment, and Gloria was instantly absorbed in the usual spectacle of clouds underneath one. Then they were over clear sky again, and she turned to her mother with a sudden mysterious air of secret knowledge. I know why we're going to the city, Mama. Do you? Mrs. Weston was puzzled. Why, dear? You didn't tell me because you wanted it to be a surprise, but I know. For a moment, she was lost in admiration at her own acute penetration, and then she laughed gaily. We're going to New York so we can find Robbie, aren't we? We're detectives. The statement caught George Weston in the middle of a drink of water with disastrous results. There was a sort of strangled gasp, a geyser of water, and then a bout of choking coughs. When it was all over, he stood there red-faced, water-drenched, and a very, very annoyed person. Mrs. Weston maintained her composure, but when Gloria repeated her question in a more anxious tone of voice, she found her temper rather bent. Maybe, she retorted tartly. Now sit and be still, for heaven's sake. New York City, 1998 AD, was a paradise for the sightseer more than ever in its history. Gloria's parents realized this and made the most of it. On direct orders from his wife, George Weston arranged to have his business take care of itself for a month or so, to be free to spend the time in what he termed dissipating Gloria to the verge of ruin. Like everything else Weston did, this was gone about in an efficient, thorough, and businesslike way. Before the month had passed, nothing that could be done had not been done. She was taken to the top of the half-mile-tall Roosevelt Building to gaze down in awe upon the jagged panorama of rooftops that blended far off in the fields of Long Island and the flatlands of New Jersey. They visited the zoos where Gloria stared in delicious fright at the real live lion, rather disappointed that the keepers fed him raw steaks instead of human beings as she'd expected, and then asked insistently and peremptorily to see the whale. The various museums came in for their share of attention, together with the parks, the beaches, and the aquarium. She was taken halfway up the Hudson in an excursion steamer fitted out in the archaism of the mad 20s. She traveled in the stratosphere on an exhibition trip where the sky turned deep purple and the stars came out, and the misty earth below looked like a huge concave bowl. Down under the waters of the Long Island Sound, she was taken in a glass-walled subsea vessel where in a green and wavering world, quaint and curious sea things ogled her and wiggled suddenly away. On a more prosaic level, Mrs. Weston took her to the department stores where she could revel in another type of fairyland. In fact, when the month had nearly sped, the Westons were convinced that everything conceivable had been done to take Gloria's mind once and for all off the departed Robbie, but they were not quite sure they had succeeded. The fact remained that wherever Gloria went, she displayed the most absorbed and concentrated interest in such robots as happened to be present. No matter how exciting the spectacle before her, or how novel to the girlish eyes, she turned away instantly if the corner of her eye caught a glimpse of metallic movement. Mrs. Weston went out of her way to keep Gloria away from all robots, and the matter was finally climaxed in the episode at the Museum of Science and Industry. The museum had announced a special children's program in which exhibits of scientific witchery was scaled down to the child mind would be shown. The Westons, of course, placed it upon their list of absolutely. It was while the Westons were standing totally absorbed in the exploits of a powerful electromagnet that Mrs. Weston suddenly became aware of the fact that Gloria was no longer with her. Initial panic gave way to calm decision, and enlisting the aid of her 3 attendants, a careful search was begun. Gloria, of course, was not one to wander aimlessly, however. For her age, she was an unusually determined and purposeful girl, quite full of the maternal genes in that respect. She had seen a huge sign on the 3rd floor, which had said, "This way to the talking robot." Having spelled it out to herself, and having noticed that her parents did not seem to wish to move in the proper direction, she did the obvious thing. Waiting for an opportune moment of parental distraction, she calmly disengaged herself and followed the sign. The talking robot was a tour de force, a thoroughly impractical device possessing publicity value only. Once an hour, an escorted group stood before it and asked questions of the robot engineer in charge of its in careful whispers. Those the engineer decided were suitable for the robot's circuit were transmitted to the talking robot. It was rather dull. It may be nice to know that the square of 14 is 196. The temperature at the moment is 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and the air pressure, 30.02 inches of mercury. The atomic weight of sodium is 23, but one really doesn't need a robot for that. One especially doesn't need an unwieldy, totally immobile mass of wires and coils spreading over 25 square yards. Few people bothered to return for a second helping, but one girl in her middle teens sat quietly on a bench waiting for a third. She was the only one in the room. Gloria did not look at her. To her, at the moment, another human being was an inconsiderable item. She saved her attention for the large thing with the wheels. For a moment, she hesitated in dismay. It didn't look like any robot she'd ever seen. Cautiously and doubtfully, she raised her treble voice. "Please, Mr. Robot, sir. Are you the talking robot, sir?" She wasn't sure, but it seemed to her that a robot that actually talked was worth a great deal of politeness. The girl in her mid-teens allowed a look of intense concentration to cross her thin, pale face. She whipped out a small notebook and began writing in rapid pothooks. There was an oily whirl of gears, and mechanically timbered voice boomed out in words that lacked access and intonation. "I am the robot that talks." Gloria stared at it ruefully. It did talk, but the voice came from inside somewheres. There was no face to talk to. She said, "Can you help me, Mr. Robot, sir?" The talking robot, was designed to answer questions, and only such questions as it could answer had ever been put to it. It was quite confident in its ability, therefore, "I can help you." "Thank you, Mr. Robot, sir. Have you seen Robbie?" "Who is Robbie?" "He's a robot, Mr. Robot, sir." She stretched to tippy toes. "He's about so high, Mr. Robot, sir, only higher, and he's very nice. He's got a head, you know. I mean, you haven't, but he has, Mr. Robot, sir." The talking robot had been left behind. "A robot?" "Yes, Mr. Robot. A robot like you, except he can't talk, of course, and looks like a real person." "A robot like me?" "Yes, Mr. Robot, sir." To which the talking robot's only response was an erratic sputter and the radical generalization offered it, i.e. its own existence, not as a particular object, but as a member of a general group, was too much for it. Loyally, it tried to encompass the concept, and a half-dozen coils burned out, Little warning signals were buzzing. The girl in her preteens left at that point. She had enough for her Physics 1 paper on practical aspects of robotics. This paper was Dr. Susan Calvin's first of many on the subject. Gloria stood waiting with carefully concealed impatience for the machine's answer when they heard the cry behind her of "There she is," and recognized that cry as her mother's. "What were you doing here, you bad girl?" cried Mrs. Weston, anxiety dissolving at once into anger. "Do you know you frightened your mama and daddy almost to death? Why did you run away?" The robot engineer had also dashed in, tearing his hair and demanding who of the gathering crowd had tampered with the machine. "Can't anybody read signs? You're not allowed in here without an attendant." Gloria raised her grieved voice over the din. "I only came in to see the talking robot, Mama. I thought he might know where Robbie was because they're both robots." And then she thought of Robbie and was brought suddenly, forcefully home to her. And in a sudden storm of tears, she said, "I got to go find Robbie, Mama. I got to." Mrs. Weston strangled a cry and said, "Oh, heavens, come home, George. This is more than I can stand." That evening, George Weston left for several hours, and next morning he approached his wife with something that looked suspiciously like smug complacence. "I've got an idea, Grace." "About what?" About what was the gloomy, uninterested query? "About Gloria." "You're not going to suggest we buy back that robot?" "No, of course not." "Then go ahead. I might as well listen to you. Nothing I've done seems to have done any good." "All right, here's what I've been thinking. The whole trouble with Gloria is that she thinks of Robbie as a person and not as a machine. Naturally, she can't forget him. Now, if we manage to convince her that Robbie was nothing more than a mass of steel and copper in the form of sheets and wires with electricity, its juice of life, how long would her longings last? It's the psychological attack, if you see my point." "How do you plan to do it?" "Simple. Where do you suppose I went last night? I persuaded Robertson of U.S. Robotics and Mechanical Men to arrange a complete tour of his premises tomorrow. The three of us will go, and by the time we're through, Gloria will have it drilled into her that a robot is not alive." Mrs. Weston's eyes widened gradually, and something glinted in her eye, and that was quite like sudden admiration. "Why, George, that's a good idea." And George Weston's vest buttons strained. "The only kind I have," he said. Look in the basement. Oh, I didn't even look in the basement. Oh, well, sorry. I have to look up while I'm reading it now and then, which would be a good idea, I guess. Let's see, else is a book. Esther. Die bag. Somebody yell at him. Look in the basement. Be shocked at the stream and don't pay attention. F it. I'm going live right on. All right. All right, if there's anybody else here, speak up right now, because I don't know if I've got any more audience. I don't see anybody anymore, and so with that, I'm going to close this. It's been a lot of fun. I just basically, like I said, set it up so I could try out the different scenes from the OBS program. So I'll put these old bills away. Yeah, I know. Actually, I was still thinking I might just finish the story, honestly, but I mean, then it would be complete. It's not that much farther. Nah. Now I'll come back to it another day. It's all good. Like I said, the whole reason was to make sure I could play with this. Start off with a banner. Come into hi everyone, welcome to the show. Side shot. Go into the front shot, say hi to everyone, welcome, blah, blah, blah. Yak, 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 blah, blah, blah. And have the what I call the front and over, which gives you the front of me and the overshot, front and over. And I also had the overshot, which is over and no, well, the front is still down here in the corner. But I was playing with scenes first in OBS tonight. These are the scenes I set up, and they seem to be pretty cool. It'll be enjoyable to use them for something more serious in the future, but I thought I would do some reading and do something, I don't know. But I was, once I'm down with my nose in a book, boy, it's hard to get me to look up. That's where you got to have another person sort of helping you out with hosting, which is possible to do. And I had fun too. Okay, it's been about an hour and a half. I'm bowing out. I'll probably be over at Can-Cans right away, so I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. See you over at Can-Cans.